Good morning to everyone, to friends and colleagues here in the Philippines and abroad. It is a wonderful day that God gave us, and it is a great day to discover and learn new ideas with mathematics. And most importantly, to share fun and inspiring memories of a dear colleague and professor, Dr. Noli Reyes. My name is Marik Neri of the Institute of Mathematics in UP Diliman, and this webinar is presented to you by the Optimization and Approximation Academic Group. Today's special webinar is dedicated to the memory of Dr. Noli Reyes. We were greatly shocked and deeply grieved by his untimely demise last March. And in this simple gesture of a webinar, we give tribute to an outstanding mathematician, professor, mentor, and friend. As we go on, please take note that this Zoom meeting is being recorded, and it is also being streamed live via YouTube, and the link is posted on the IMath Facebook page. Everyone is on mute by default, and for questions or comments, one may click the raise hand button, or one may type his or her question on the comment or as a comment in the chat box. To open this meeting, let us welcome the Director of the Institute of Mathematics in UP Diliman, Dr. Carlin Perpetua Pilar Arcea.
Good morning. Can you hear me now, Marik? I'm not on mute anymore.
Good morning po.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, as the case may be. I trust we are all well and keep.
Excuse me, Ma'am Carlin, nawawala po yung sound.
Okay na?
Okay na po.
Okay. So thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be, to everyone. I trust we are all well and keeping safe. If I'm not mistaken, it will be 7 months tomorrow. 7 months tomorrow, no? It was April 10. Since we lost a beloved and invaluable member of our IMath family. Noli was enjoying his sabbatical leave at the time, which was supposed to be for the entire year of 2020. Noli was so looking forward to it. He applied for it a good year before. And he even posted, the moment his sabbatical started, on FB that he was raring to go on what I think he called his bicycle sabbatique, always with a touch of French yan si Noli. Indeed, for close to 30 years, Noli was a hardworking and dedicated colleague, professor, mentor, and researcher of the Institute, and he was a dear friend to many. He was strict, no? I'll do a bit of my memories also of Noli. He was strict, sometimes feared. But if one could muster enough courage, he was quite ready to assist anyone who he sees is working hard to unravel mathematical mysteries, to solve mathematical problems. I say this from experience. I was his student. And one time, for a problem set, convincing myself to consult him because I was getting dead ends in my solution. I tried. I mustered the courage to approach him, knock on his faculty room door, show him my solution, and imagine my utter surprise, pleasant surprise, when he didn't just point out my error. He didn't just point me in the right direction, but practically gave me the entire solution. No, almost the entire solution. Kulang na lang siguro yung pinakasagot. And it really made my day. Yeah, I was scared. And as students, we knew that he could have very little patience with those who he thought did not take their math and their studies seriously. He also seemed to be of few words, but he would become quite eloquent when it came to his lectures. I distinctly remember sitting in his class and listening in awe as he spoke in a soft and sometimes French accented voice. The steel coming out was emphasizing a point and making it to me very memorable with the occasional burst of picturesque Filipino, like he did when he taught us that in a convergent series, ang mga termino sa buntot ng serye ay papaliit ng papaliit at papalapit ng papalapit sa zero. He seemed shy, but was quick to smile. It was a sort of naughty smile. He was also quick to act and react when his help was needed, especially if it was to assist in a cause for students, faculty, or the institute. If he felt strongly enough, he could shed that self-effacing demeanor and soft voice to shout mightily and raise his fist with the best of them. He was someone we all looked up to. Literally, we did, because he was quite tall. But we looked up to him not only for his ardent love and study of math, Ohio State Ph.D. alumnus, 2002 NAST Outstanding Young Scientist awardee, a leading researcher, a very good professor, well respected, but also he was multi-talented, multifaceted. There was music, his piano playing, his athletics. No? He fought for the environment and human rights. Parang intimidating. But for those who got to know him, he was humble, approachable, fun-loving, quite the foodie. And he had a big, generous heart. I will miss Noli in the classroom, in our meetings, in the lounge, seeing him at the CS Oval in the afternoons. I already miss his FB posts, his latest triathlon triumph, for example. You'd see pictures of him tall, tan, beaming beside his bike. And this is why I, like all of you here, I guess, are looking forward to hearing the talks of Louis, Agnes, Fidel, and the messages that will follow, as I will be imagining Noli again upon listening to each one of them, while listening to each one of them. I believe all of you share these feelings as well. And this is why I, on behalf of IMath, am very happy that you are all with us today. And this is why I am honored to welcome you to this IMath webinar in memory and in celebration of our dear Dr. Reyes, our dear Noli. Once again, welcome and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma'am Kayan, for that inspiring opening remarks. Indeed, Dr. Noli Reyes, many students would look at him as if he is a teacher to be avoided. That was also my perception when I was in my undergrad, even in my master's year. But when I was in my PhD, I got to work with Dr. Reyes, especially as a member of the panel of many um, thesis defenses. And he has proven himself to be a very amiable guy, a very friendly person. And my perception on him changed. And he became a friend. Thank you, Ma'am Kayan, for that very nice opening to give us a talk entitled Noli Reyes as My Mentor. Let us welcome Dr. Louis Vallejo.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Ayan. So, let me share my screen. Okay. So, nakikita na ba yung screen ko?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So, good morning, everybody. For the most part of my talk today, I would like to discuss some mathematical research that we have done together with my mentor, Dr. Noli Reyes. Some of them are results from shelved projects, which we have not yet fully written for submission, and maybe a couple from our students' thesis projects. Well respected as he is among colleagues and maybe feared by the younger ones, Sir Noli contributed to the development of the Philippine mathematical community through his impeccable teaching and mentorship to 4 PhDs and several BS and MS students in UP Diliman. I am one of his 4 academic sons, like people say for PhD students of a professor. As his field of research is mathematical analysis, he gave his students research topics on approximation theory, harmonic analysis, sampling theory, convex analysis, and others. He may have a soft spot to students from the province. From at least 2 recommendation letters that he wrote for me, there is always a paragraph stating that I came from one of the poorest places, which is true, by the way, where educational resources are scarce. We took our time with him. He doesn't like sloppy sentences and crammed work. For him, every statement should be well thought of, every definition must be natural, and every argument must be clear. He has a knack for conciseness without sacrificing rigor. I should know because I took 19 courses under him in a span of a decade. I could say that almost all of the mathematics that I know as a student, I learned from his style of teaching, thinking, and even from his manner of writing, even for the curly letters X and F. Of course, I can only wish for even half his discipline and prowess, but it's not only a few times that I want to channel a Sir Noli in me when faced with hard problems or a difficult research problem. I ask myself, what would Sir Noli do? DS Math Batch 2003 was lucky because Sir Noli handled all our analysis courses. When we talk about him, we always remark about the time he entered our first class in shorts and slippers, looking like one of the staff. But more so, we talk about how good he is as a, how good he is as a teacher. Wait lang ah. Mm, um, sorry about that. He wrote extremely big letters on the board and still asked if the last row of a small classroom can still see the board. His blackboard notes were very organized and brief. It's very hard to remember him. Mm. Sometimes he wrote proofs more elegantly than how the book did, or inserted key details where the book thought okay to omit. His examples are the quintessential, only discussing enough so we could explore on our own. His sit-in exams were easy to the attentive while punishing to the delinquent. His problem sets were often original and sometimes inspired by what he was doing for research at that time, so they were rarely searchable on the internet. He was the epitome of a good teacher, and good students sought to enroll in his classes. In our eyes, he was our natatangi at pinakamahusay na guro. Now, I would like to talk about our research together. I had him as advisor for my BS, MS, and PhD. In the early 2000s, wavelets was the hot topic in analysis, maybe from the discovery of the Dobish's wavelets in the early 90s. We can see from his papers that he was intensely interested with harmonic analysis. It's not surprising that he gave me the topic about multi-resolution analysis for my BS undergraduate research. It was probably out of my depth at that time, and given only one semester to study and work, he guided me with the theory and only asked me to show a convergence result, the proof of which, while long and cumbersome, had fairly standard techniques. Nonetheless, I was very thankful for his patience and guidance. So, armed with his recommendation letter, I applied and was accepted for a teaching post in UP Diliman. I also took up my master's degree, where my love for analysis was deepened with the graduate level approach of real and complex analysis. It was natural for me to take him as my MS advisor in 2008. We extended the result of a student before me and wrote a paper about it. The paper was about Lagrange interpolation of band-limited functions. Basically, we showed that band-limited functions, those whose Fourier transform is zero outside a compact interval, are completely determined by its values on a sequence with a slow growth rate. So for two such sequences, we showed that the Lagrange interpolation of the band-limited function on these sampling sets converge rapidly to the function on compact subsets of the complex plane. Twice we submitted to journals and twice we were also rejected. I remembered him telling me that it was okay, that we should trust the refereeing process and we shouldn't be discouraged with rejections. We were planning to rewrite it for a resubmission, but the project was shelved for how many years? Last year, we decided to present it in a sampling theory conference in Bordeaux. In mid-2000s, several French professors established a collaborative international master's program in UP called IMAMIS, where French experts taught master's level classes with Filipino counterparts in UP Diliman, with the objective that after some years, the Filipino counterpart can run the courses by themselves. Professor Patrick Combet, then from Pierre and Marie Curie University in Paris and an expert in convex analysis, was the counterpart of Sir Noli to teach optimization in Hilbert spaces. Soon thereafter, they produced in 2010 a paper about the characterizations for the feasibility of a system of projection operation equations. To be more precise, we let U and V be closed linear subspaces of a Hilbert space H. So one main objective of their paper was to find characterizations of the property that whenever UV is an element of U cross V, there exists a vector X in H such that the projection of X onto U is U, small u, and the projection of X onto big V is small v. I remembered that he deeply enjoyed working on this paper. In one of his Facebook posts, he said that he was gently going nonlinear but always convex. He saw open problems from this paper that he shared with his future advisees, including myself for my dissertation. So let me write down two of their results, which Sir Noli saw extensions of. So in their original paper, they showed that if S and T are linear and bounded operators that satisfy a moderate condition, then the solvability of the system of linear equations Sx equals y1 and Tx equals y2 is guaranteed for every y1 and y2. They also showed a necessary and sufficient condition for a system of projection equations to admit approximate solutions. In 2010, Nestor and I were already PhD students of Sir Noli, and I remember that we had weekly seminars about complemented subspaces and closedness of a sum of closed subspaces of a Banach space. The loss of the inner product and reflexivity property forced us to deal with dual spaces and adjoints of bounded linear operators. The problem is very similar, but the techniques of the proof are more involved. Again, we have two bounded linear transformations S and T from a Banach space X to itself. We assume that their ranges are closed. We then want to find characterizations of the property that for all S star T star in the range of S star cross range T star, we can find a continuous linear functional phi in X star such that S star phi, which by definition is phi circle S, equals S star, and T star phi, which by definition is phi circle T, is T star. Together with the existence of approximate solutions result in the next slide, we shelved this project for reasons I still don't remember. Maybe we hit a wall somewhere, but in the mid 2010s, he revived this project with one of his MS students where they explored similar results in the specific Banach space LP. Analogous to their 2010 result about the characterization of the existence of approximate solutions, we also showed that the same result happens in the Banach space setting. Note that the characterization is very similar to that of their 2010 paper. For approximate solutions to exist, the range of S and the range of T must be independent. Perhaps because Sir Noli was an approximation guy, his dissertation was about polynomial approximation, he was intrigued with the properties of these approximate solutions. In particular, under the same setting of his 2010 paper, but with specific subsets U and V of the Hilbert space L2, we considered a system of projection equations with no solution, but has approximate solutions. We showed that as the approximations get better, the norm of the approximations blow up to infinity. We were then interested in an uncertainty principle-like inequality that would describe how fast one of the expressions goes to infinity in relation to how fast the other goes to zero. In other words, with an inequality like this, it would be impossible for these two factors to be simultaneously small. Getting this inequality is the more general open problem, but for a specific set of subsets U and V of L2 and a specific set of values small u and small v, we have managed to establish a contextualized version of this inequality. This became my dissertation topic. We then applied this to the space of essentially band-limited and essentially time-limited functions. The Paley-Wiener theorem prevents a function to be simultaneously band-limited and time-limited. However, these properties are ideal and are sought after in functions used in applications. We applied our main inequality to this setting and established a lower bound on the amount of energy that needs to be outside a given set of concentration intervals of time and frequency. So I also presented this in the Asian Math Conference back in 2016, I think. So last year, we worked with one of his master student whose topic was the blow up of approximate solutions of nonlinear equations. The setting is more general. We consider a continuous, possibly nonlinear operator S from a Hilbert space H to another Hilbert space G. We also let Y be an element of the boundary of the range of S, but not in the range of S. This just means that although the equation Sx equals Y has no solution, we can find approximate solutions for the equation. We show that under several conditions, for example, if H is finite dimensional, S is linear, or if identity minus S is non-expansive, then the sequence of approximate solutions to Sx equals Y would blow up in norm. Aside from that, we also exhibited an example of a continuous operator S from L2 to L2 and a specific function g that is not in the range of S, such that the approximate solutions exist, Sx equals g, but the approximate solutions remain bounded and therefore do not blow up in norm. By 2016, I also took an MS student myself. Although we were working independently on a similar topic, Sir Noli acted as the reader in the panel when my advisee defended his thesis. We were interested in approximate fixed points of non-expansive operators. In 1971, Pazzi showed that if a non-expansive operator T has no fixed points but admits approximate fixed points, then the sequence of its Picard iterates, which are just n applications of T on any starting point, will have to blow up in norm. He also showed that the growth rate is much less than that of n. Similar result happens for certain approximate fixed points of T found by perturbing the original operator by averaging it with the identity operator. These were first studied in 1966 by Browder and further studied in 2006 by Combet and Hirstuaga. A research group in Canada headed by Heinz Bauschke also found applications in the asymptotic behavior of an algorithm that computes the projection onto an intersection of two closed convex sets and an algorithm to find the minimum of a function. To be more precise, we let T be a non-expansive operator from a Hilbert space H to itself and let epsilon be positive. Then the convex combination of the identity and the operator T becomes a strict contraction and therefore admits a unique fixed point. For a fixed x, the curve that we get that maps epsilon to the above fixed point is called the approximating curve and satisfies the following dichotomy result. If the set of fixed points of T is non-empty, then the curve accumulates to the nearest fixed point of T to X. On the other hand, if T has no fixed points, then the curve blows up in norm. My MS advisee and I showed that similar to the growth rate of the Picard iterates that were studied by Pazzi in 1971, the approximating curve also grows in the same way. If T has no fixed points and no approximate fixed points, then the growth rate of the curve is linear. And if it has approximate fixed points, the growth rate is much less than 1 over epsilon as epsilon goes to 0. A consequence of the non-expansivity of T shows that the growth rate is uniform for all x, and therefore we can describe the growth rate of any x epsilon by 0 epsilon. Of course, the challenge still is to effectively compute these approximate fixed points, but well, it remains a challenge as of now. And as an example, suppose we do an alternate projection between two closed convex sets which do not intersect and become eventually tangent. We see that because we don't have a fixed point, then the iterates blow up in norm. Using 0 sub epsilon, which is easily computed in this case, we show that the approximate fixed points grow the same way as 1 over 4th root of epsilon as epsilon goes to 0, and when n equals 1. We also derived how fast the difference of tx epsilon and x epsilon goes to 0. In fact, it is not hard to relate the growth rate of x epsilon with the convergence rate to 0 of this difference. It can also happen that a non-expansive operator T has an apparent fixed point, but is outside the ambient Hilbert space. For example, if T is the map that shifts a sequence one term to the right and puts a 1 on the first term, then the apparent fixed point is the constant sequence 1, which is not anymore in L2. In this case, the result still holds, and we see that the approximating curve of fixed points grow like 1 over square root of epsilon as epsilon goes to 0. Last year, my BS advisee and I showed analogous results for maximally monotone operators. So during his last years, we also did an extension on another front. So we recall that their 2000 paper found several characterizations of the property that for all uv in U cross V, there exists x in H such that PUX equals U and PVX equals V. But in general, projection operators are defined on non-empty closed convex subsets of H. So if C and D are such subsets of H, when is the above property true if we replace UV with CD? In fact, we were working in a more general framework. So let gamma naught of H be the space of all proper lower semi-continuous and convex functions from H to R, and let F be an element of this space, and let X be also an element of H. The indicator function of a closed, non-empty, and convex subset C is defined to be 0 if X is in C and infinity otherwise. The support function is defined this way. So the support of C at a point X is the supremum of the inner product of X with the elements of C. And then we also define this proximal operator. The proximity operator of F is the function that sends x to the minimizer of f of y plus half of the square norm of the difference of x and y. So the proximity operator is well studied in the 2004 paper of Combet and Wash, and it extends the concept of a projection operator in this sense that the proximal operator of the indicator function is nothing but the projection operator. So this is how we sought to extend the 2000 paper. So we also define the notion of subdifferentials and the consequence by Fermat's rule that P equals the proximity operator of f at x if and only if x minus p is in the subdifferential of f at p. So this is the main theorem, which is also the research problem of one of uh, uh, his PhD student. So let f and g be in the space of convex, proper, and lower semi-continuous functions, and let p be in the domain of the subdifferential of f. This just means that the subdifferential of f at p is non-empty. The same way, let q be in the domain of the subdifferential of g. Then under mild conditions, the following are equivalent. So the first condition, the first statement is that the system of proximal equations has a solution, and this is equivalent to the infimum of this sum being equal to 0. So this is, we still have a long way to work on this problem. So I think that's all for the mathematical part. Uh, Now for the last 5 slides, I will try to keep alive the memory of Sir Noli by sharing my life experiences with him through the years. So sana hindi ulit ako umiyak. In the late 2000s to early 2010s, I already knew him for several years and have come to understand most of his rules. In the classroom, his unbreakable rule is that of honesty and integrity. Any student under him knows that cheating on his problem set is like a death sentence. You never consult anyone except him about the problems. So it's shown here on the slide that a screenshot of what his instructions look like in his problem sets. He has always espoused these values throughout his life, I imagine. I think part of why he acts and speaks very freely is because he led a simple and honest and proper life. He speaks his mind. I think he cannot stand to see something wrong and keep to himself his heavy thoughts, so he really speaks his mind. This is probably why, in the last part of President Gloria's presidency, when corruption was very rampant, he was often in the streets protesting. He would email the whole faculty the invitations for demonstration, and I had joined him on several occasions. Perhaps one unforgettable experience was being in the front lines together in Philcoa with a long tarpaulin in hand and moving forward and towards several files of battle-geared policemen. Internally, my heart was already pounding, but Sir Noli, beside me, was shouting the chants with a very serious look, very fearless, and almost single-minded on our approach. Thankfully, negotiations were successful, and to my relief, We didn't have any physical encounters aside from being epsilon units away from policemen's breath. He was also an activist for the marginalized. Aside from holding the proverbial sword in the streets, he also has a talent in pen. On the occasion that UP increased its matriculation fees in 2007 to 2008, he wrote an opinion to to the National Daily. It was very poignant, and reading it again, I realized how he was very brilliant in humanities too. This piece was widely shared among UP alumni, and it served as a basis for then Senator Miriam Santiago to propose a scholarship database in the 15th Congress. Aside from this, I remember he wrote another letter about the environment and several influential opinions to the school paper. His words are always moving, very eloquent. I know he reads a lot of classics. I remember him reading Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and he is conversant about the works of French philosophers and early thinkers. In his last years, he involves himself in university politics by writing nomination letters to chancellors and UP presidents that he supports. But don't get me wrong, he was not always reactive and combatant. In fact, more often, he loves peace and quiet. There was a time that he frequents Palawan, which he said he was enamored to. After my graduation from master's, he invited me to join him in a trip to Palawan. It was funny because I thought it was purely vacation. So I carried my luggage filled only with clothes, my shades, my phone. Then lo and behold, when I get to the airport and I saw Sir Noli reading a math book and writing equations on paper, I realized afterwards that he takes these trips to focus on his research. Of course, we did all the touristy things in El Nido, but we also had days where we only studied and read papers. We also dared to climb the cliffs, which we realized afterwards that we were not prepared because we only went there on slippers and did not know how steep the cliff was. It was very steep and sharp. We also went to this part in Pangalusian Islands and swam with wild sharks. It was very unforgettable trip, and I thank Sir Noli for letting me hitch on his study time. In the late 2010s, he was addicted to running and joining triathlons. He had a lot of medals to show in his apartment, which he got in every triathlon he accomplished. When I asked him how he can finish 42 kilometers, he said he also gets tired after some time and he just walks to recover. Then he runs again. He said that in the end, you just have to fight the laziness in you and the impulse to stop before the goal distance. He finds peace in working his body to swim, to bike, and to run. And I think more than a way to exercise, his physical activities make him commune with his being and understand its possibilities and limitations. I envy his search for inner peace. He practiced meditation that enhanced total awareness. And one time he told me he enjoys listening to raindrops falling on the leaves of trees while eating. He has so much attention to detail. We also had a lot of food trips. When we are alone, we had uh we had this place in Cruz Naligas where we buy carinderia food. He always likes this stew from stingray, no? Kinonot, and ampalaya and munggo. And then we also uh, he also likes Thai foods. So here he always orders pad Thai and tom yum with shrimp. He also likes amici, no, Italian food. He also likes pomodoro and four cheese pizza. In potluck dinners, he always brings fruits like pomelo, mangoes, and papaya. And he enjoys a lot of breads and pastries. So, sourdough bread and Sans Rival, and before chocolate cake from a place in Katipunan. So I think that is my last slide. So I just want to say that Sir Noli was a very big part of my life. So I met him in November of 2003 for my first class, and and after being his student, he had come to trust me as a friend. I was beside him in his last days, and and it's very hard to grieve, to remember him always, and amidst this pandemic. So I tell, I know that he watches over us, and I just want to say that thank you to Sir Nolly, and I will terribly miss him. That's all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vallejo. Thank you for sharing those memories of Dr. Noli Reyes. Most of them are really memories which most of us don't know, because we only know, many of us know Dr. Reyes as a simple professor, but perhaps unbeknownst to many is that he's also an accomplished athlete, triathlete in fact, and also a musician, a pianist. So thank you for that talk. Is there any question or reaction from the participants on the talk of Dr. Vallejo? So you may just unmute your microphone and you may speak directly, or you may write your comments in the chat box. Anyone? Let me just share a quick excerpt in my dealing with Sir Noli. When we were organizing this workshop in approximation and optimization last year, and we had a need for finances, because it's not easy to get immediate support from the administration. We have to buy these statuettes now that we will give to our speakers. Dr. Noli readily said, "Okay, I will give the money, and you can buy the statuettes." So he was very supportive of that, or of that conference, and he is a person who doesn't really like to be in the limelight. So many times I told him, "Sir, you should be the one to lead the optimization and approximation group, because you are the most senior in this academic group." But he would say, "No, I'll just leave that to you. I will always be supportive of the group, and you can always rely on me." So truly, he is a humble guy, a good person. All right, so
May question po pala si, hello?
yes.
May question po dito si Sir Edgar Reyes. I think na-send po ata niya privately. Louis, did you extend some of your results to other fields or rings?
I'm sorry.
Uh,
No, no, we didn't do anything algebra with our results.
okay po, ayun na. So, thank you din, Louis. Yeah, his Sir Noli's legacy will definitely live on, uh, well, mostly through you, ano, yung academic legacy niya doon sa mga students na magiging student mo at saka mga students din na mag-iwan. Sige, thank you, Louis. Sir?
Okay, so again, thank you, Dr. Vallejo, for that your the memories you shared and the publications, the research you did with Dr. Reyes. So we are taking a 2-minute break, and after that, we will have more short messages coming from our invited guests. Okay, to the participants who has just come in, we welcome you to this webinar in memory of Dr. Noli Reyes. Now we come to the segment of the webinar entitled Remembering Noli. And we are pleased to have with us Dr. Agnes Paras to share her thoughts on Sir Noli. Good morning, Ma'am Agnes.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Next time, just let's use my iPad.
Can you see my slides?
You want to use this?
Yes po.
Yes, okay.
Do you want to use this?
Good morning. Oops.
For a while lang po. Okay, ma'am.
Okay na?
Apa.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I first met Noli in October 1993 at the end of his first sem of teaching in UP after obtaining his Ph.D. from the Ohio State University. Along with Reynaldo Rey and Jimmy Caro, we were housemates at the Lynn House of the then Department of Mathematics until 1995. When I returned homeless in 1997, Noli graciously let me stay in the spare room of his apartment until I was granted a unit in the same apartment building in 1999. In the morning, Noli savored his strong coffee with milk and read the day's paper or a book when the paper was not delivered. Breakfast was followed by at least half an hour of piano playing, and this went on for more than a decade until a neighbor who was going through a stressful phase complained. Afterwards, on alternate days, he would go to Marikina, Pasig, or Makati to swim laps, not minding the heat, just to avoid the crowds in the Olympic-sized pool. This partly explains his rich chocolate complexion. Noli loved eating lunch in carinderias for the fresh fish sinigang, Bicolano dishes, vegetables, and generous servings. His suki in the Marikina public market thought he was a security guard, but he just smiled and did not bother to deny it. He was not offended and even found it amusing. When a servitora would notice him wearing something new and remark, "Mukhang nakakaluwag tayo," he would just smile and agree with her. Noli did his share in protecting the environment. He actively composted kitchen waste and even taught students how to do it in an NSTP class. He recycled by bringing his own food containers for takeout and plastic bags when shopping, long before it was required by law. And he also planted several trees. Noli was generous to people earning an honest day's wage and to those in need. His generous tips to waiters and taxi drivers was his way of helping out people who need to work days or months for something that he could easily earn in a few hours. Noli lived simply and without fuss. He dressed for comfort, not forma, and was not overly concerned by material possessions. He is an ideal companion to experience life in the remote and undeveloped islands of the country. As much as possible, he did not want to impose on others if he could do something by himself. While in the hospital, he had to be convinced by Jim and Louis to inform his family of his condition. In his late 40s, he started training for marathons and kept at it till he completed some. Not long after, he set his sights on triathlons and with characteristic discipline and dedication, committed himself to the rigorous preparations these entailed. Initially, he went to these events by himself. Later on, he was adopted by a team of triathletes from Bacolod, joined their training sessions, and attended events with them. At the end of each triathlon, he would openly relate how he fared and figure out how he can improve his performance. His life may seem short, but in all that he did, Noli was fully engaged and disciplined in his pursuits, in mathematics, music, and triathlons. He lived life as he wanted. Here are some pictures shared by friends. So if you are not in this picture, it means you did not share it with me. So these pictures were shared by Rovin and MJ Santos, Jim Minglana, and Cheryl Talawe. So this is one of the evenings where we shared meals together. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ma'am Agnes Paras. Now we will have a Remembering Noli message from the Chancellor of the UP Diliman, Professor Fidel Yemenso.
Malik,
Sir.
Malik, can we have a 3-minute break?
Sige po, sir.
Kunin ko lang yung kape ko.
Okay, to everyone, let's have a short break.
Mavic,
Yes, sir.
sorry, hindi ko nakita yung message niyo. Can I share screen? Actually, ako, pwede mag-share screen.
Yes, sir. I-click nyo lang po. Okay, so we can see the screen already.
Good morning, everyone. Noli was among the many people on campus, my friends. Noli was a touchstone because across the years, it was Noli who always gave me a sense of home. Matagal ko nang kilala ang pamilya ni Noli. We all grew up on campus. Si Egay was one of the toughies among the Batang campus. Of course, we all knew Professor Reyes as a mathematics professor. Leah was a classmate from UPLM, UP High, and UPIS. Si Rene was a classmate of my brother. Although Noli and I were not playmates because I lived in another part of the campus. So the first time I've always known of Noli since I was a child. But the first time I really interacted with him was when we were classmates in Math 117, number theory, under Professor Nitz Ocampo. Si Noli ang tahimik na naalala ko, nakaupo malapit sa bintana. Pero kilala ko siya dahil isa siyang Reyes at isa siyang batang campus. That was my first year as a mathematics major. I had just shifted into mathematics. And number theory was among the first classes. I felt so out of place. But I remembered Noli's smile when we met in class. The sense of familiarity was so reassuring. Parehong batang UP, parehong math major. During the class, Noli and I never really talked with each other, but we always smiled. Because again, with Noli, I felt in a sense of home because he was someone familiar. In a class of majors, I was interacting with for the first time. But I remember the questions he asked in class and his report in the class of Professor Nitz Ocampo. I knew then that this classmate of mine was passionate about mathematics and loved mathematics the way I do. I lost touch with Noli after that, but I was happy when I saw him many years later when he came home from his Ph.D. studies in 1993. Now he was a new Ph.D. from Ohio. Again, I was happy because that was my first year as a member of the faculty, still feeling like an outsider because I never really grew my roots in mathematics. I had circulated in other circles. But I was happy to see Noli again, the sense of the familiar. With Noli, I sensed that we shared an excitement about being back in UP, about being back in UP to do mathematics. We entered the department. I think he returned to the department, but that was in the early 90s now. The 90s were a period of soul searching for the math department. We were still trying to be one big happy family that we are now. But that was a time when we debated about the directions the department should take. Ano ba mas mahalaga, teaching or research? Pure or applied mathematics? Those were intense, passionate debates. But of course, we were young then, and we were idealists. And when you're young, you have a simpler view of the field. We have learned much from those years of grappling with these questions about the roles we need to play as mathematicians and teachers, questions about the nature of mathematics. But from the young years of immersion in the practice of research and teaching, we have learned that those questions we used to debate about are not the essential questions. That teaching and research enrich each other, that the boundaries between the pure and applied are porous, they're shifting, they're dynamic, sometimes imaginary. Mathematics is more complex. Mathematics is more complex that can be contained in the boxes and categories that we debated about. I now realize this because Noli was one of those who told me, Fidel, ano bang pinagdidebatehan natin? You know, of course, we debated about the direction of the department. But I, being a number theorist, always thought that pure mathematics should be was more important. But it was Noli who burst my bubble and said, "What's the difference between the two? No? Ang pure nagagamit na naman, ang applied nagagaling sa pure." Noli helped me deal with those questions in our many talks in our faculty rooms. So in those years of questioning and soul searching, it was Noli who was unshakable. He was uncompromising. He was pure. He was almost like a priest. Naalala ko, one of his most unforgettable lines in a meeting in the 90s. Ang sabi niya, why do we have to defend math in the math department? But again, as I said, Noli helped me grapple with questions and resolve a lot of those issues that we concerned ourselves with. He was a pure mathematician who taught me the value and the beauty of applied mathematics. Noli was a kindred spirit. He was an ally in many causes within the institute, our university, causes in the streets, in the country. Kapag naisip ko si Noli, naisip ko those mathematicians who were activists, Grothendieck, Galois, even Villani in a certain sense, Hadamard. They were mathematicians who thought about the bigger questions beyond themselves, about the country. Noli stuck his neck out for his beliefs, sometimes recklessly, but always with the best intentions and the courage of conviction. Most of all, si Noli was a good friend. Napakarami naming napagdaanan. We had built so many memories. I remember early in the 90s, there was a terrible typhoon that hit the city, and my fourth floor apartment in Jardín ng Rosas was flooded. The wind that blew my windows open and the rain entered the apartments. Wala nang kuryente noon, no? But I had to I had to get my friends to help me remove the water from our flooded floor. And I remember Noli and Agnes on their force helping me scoop out the water, sponge out the water. I think Noli was one of those who nominated me for the chancellorship, and it was his nomination letter that really meant a lot to me, because from there, he drew from our shared experiences as um, as a faculty member, an ally in many causes. In many ways, I envied the simplicity and richness of the life of Noli. Paalam, Noli. Your life was streamlined. It was math and music and running, and I envied that. These were the barest essentials. Noli never lost touch. He was my touchstone in UP and mathematics. He always reminded me of what was essential. Our university, our home, the life of the mind, the courage of conviction, justice, good health, good music, good friends. Noli was the most decent, generous human being, and I will deeply miss him. Thank you. I just want to, again, like Agnes, I tried to look for photos of Noli. I have many more photos of Noli, but I just wanted to show things, some photos that I could access right now. Yeah. Maraming salamat, Noli. Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Numenso. Thank you for sharing with us your times with Dr. Reyes. Sir Fidel mentioned about the turbulent 90s. That was also the time when I had my first encounter with Dr. Reyes. We were on opposite sides of the fence, seemingly. And we exchanged some heated arguments. But then later on, when he became a panel of my dissertation defense, at first I was really terrified, to understate it, because of these things said about Dr. Reyes. But when he was sitting there in the panel and commenting on my work, then I started valuing his comments, his perceptions in mathematics. And I was really surprised when eventually I found out that he was really into applied mathematics. And in fact, he became a core part of our academic group. So first impressions really don't last when we are talking about Dr. Reyes. Again, thank you very much, Chancellor, for your message. Now we will proceed with short messages from colleagues, friends, and even relatives. And at this time, we would like to welcome Dr. Patrick Combet from the North Carolina State University. Dr. Patrick Combet.
Okay, I am unmuted now. Sorry. My microphone was muted by the host. Okay.
Good evening, Professor.
Thank you. How are you all doing? So thank you for giving me the chance to say a few words about Noli. So maybe I will. I got a few pictures to show you also. So I will try to share so that. Okay. So so I first met Noli actually. Let me show you the picture when we met. This was back in 2005. So there was an exchange program, if you want, between Paris 6 and other schools and Diliman, right? So the idea was that a professor from abroad would come to the Philippines, teach a course, and then a few times, and after that, you know, the local professor would take on and teach it. So initially, I was not paired with Noli, but I think after you know, eating with him once, we realized that we had many things in common. Not only our research topic, you know, nonlinear analysis, roughly approximation theory in particular, but also I think you know, I asked him about swimming because I'm myself a swimmer and I wanted to find pools. And then he told me, you know what, I'm a swimmer myself. So from that time on, we went swimming all the time together, right? And then as we did this, of course, we had lunch afterwards. And then we started to talk math. And then we realized that, yes, we had a lot in common. So after that, we switched. So Noli became my partner, and you know, he's the one who took over the course I was teaching. So the first time this course was taught was actually in November 2005. That's the picture that you see here. I don't know, maybe the other people on that picture are here today, I'm not sure. And then every year from 2005 to 2012, I came back to the Philippines. And also, Noli came to Paris to visit me a few times in those years, right? So so for instance, this is a picture a year later in December 2006. So of course, Noli is here. And then we have, so this is 2008, which is important because it is the first time that Noli convinced me to go to Palawan. So he would accompany me on all those trips. So Noli was very nice to me, right? He would always pick me up at the airport and he would set up my trips, right? So the first 2 years I was going by myself. And then he told me, you know, really the best place is Palawan, right? And Nido. So we went there. Actually, we were working there all the time, but also, you know, exploring all the islands. And frankly, I have discovered so much of the best part of the Philippines through Noli in those trips. So those were wonderful because we would, you know, swim, of course, then do math and swim again and so on. And I also remember the visits of Noli in Paris, right? So especially one time because, you know, I really like calamansi, you know, and Noli told me, you know, especially when you eat papaya, you always put calamansi on it. And, you know, I really thought it was a great idea. So when Noli came to Paris, he would bring bags of calamansi. And one day he brought it to my office, and then we took the subway to go to my place to have dinner with my family. And you know, he showed me the calamansi, but then the bag broke, and the calamansi started to roll over the whole subway car, right? And people picked it up, and I'm not sure they knew what this was, but anyway, it's very hard to find calamansi, of course, outside the Philippines. So anyway, this was 2008. And of course, the swimming. So this was a year later, still on some little islands around Palawan, Nido. And then I want to show you this because it was not just going to the beach. We're actually working most of the day, right? And as you can see here, this is the little room where we stayed and you know, we worked. So I don't know if you can read the title of the paper here, Functions with the Prescribed Best Linear Approximations. So that's the first paper we worked on. In those nice conditions. And actually the paper was you know, submitted that year, 2009, and it appeared in the Journal of Approximation Theory, you know, about a year later. So actually, that was a very nice work that took us several years actually to put it together, but we introduced some notions here which are now used by other people, and it was a very nice paper which we really enjoyed doing this. And again, it was a nice coincidence that we had a very similar interest. So this is taken on the beach in El Lido, right? We would always go there for dinner. You can see actually book here. So we're talking math here, and this is where typically we would have the papaya and the with the calamansi juice. By the way, I want to point out this bag, right? This is Hawks, right? A Filipino brand, and Noli introduced me to that brand. And then I brought so many bags back from the Philippines, for my kids, everybody, and we still have them. They're so robust, right? So this is one of them, but I've got many more. I'm so glad that Noli introduced me to those backpacks. They're very wonderful. So this is a picture from 2011, right? So this again in the small islets around El Nido. And this is the second paper we worked on. Okay, it was also a nice piece of work that we really enjoyed, and that's something we did in the in the islands as well. So those island trips, it was nice because we'd go to Porto Princesa, then we would cross the whole island on that bus that some of you may know, and most of the times Noli went on the roof, right? Which for me was a bit crazy, right? Because of course the bus was going very fast sometimes, but Noli enjoyed to be on the roof, right? Always with his, he always wore those flip-flops, right? To climb everywhere, so it was very, so he was, like Agnes said, Noli was a very simple person, right? So warm, nothing artificial, just, good swimming, good math, good food. We didn't really interact much about the music part. I knew he was a pianist, of course. And also he was very close to his family. For instance, at the end of every trip to El Nido, he would systematically go back to see his mother, right? And that was very nice. So the last picture of us, this is 2012 in March, and this is somewhere in El Nido again, working on a new project. So the last exchange I had with Noli were actually in March. At the end of March, we're in touch because he had to write a review paper for one journal I was taking care of. And then he told me at the time, look, I just got back from the hospital, which I didn't know, right? So then we exchanged a few more emails towards the end of March. And then we're actually making plans for me to visit again because we had ideas about how to continue our work, right? Because in the meantime, I had moved to the US. That's why there was somewhat of an interruption in our collaboration. And we're talking about this, and the next thing I heard in early April was his passing. So I lost a very good friend, a wonderful person. So I owe a lot to Noli. I think mathematically, right, we are very close, but at the same time, we had other interests, like, nature in particular. Noli was very much into nature, right? I mean, looking at nice scenery, animals, preserving nature, of course. Of course, the sports aspect with the swimming was also a very nice component of our friendship. And then I owe him really all the the wonderful discoveries I made in the Philippines of the island, the people, the food, and so I keep warm memories of those years, of course. So I'll stop here, right? I can send you those pictures if you want. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Combet. Now we will we will view a short message from Dean Jose Maria Balmaceda.
Thank you, Marik. I didn't see the email of Gino early enough. I was looking forward to this day and looking forward to the talk of Fidel and Agnes. But fortunately, I got the message, and I would like to share a few things that I wrote about Noli. It was nice to hear from Fidel and Agnes. Yes, Fidel talked about the early 90s when there was a lot of fighting going on in the math department. And I remember one particular academic personnel meeting when Noli became some sort of a referee in a heated match between myself and another faculty member that almost led to fist fight. But those were different times, and but still, those memories are treasured. So this is what I want to say about Dr. Noli Reyes. It's not only the institute that lost a pillar of the faculty, but the whole mathematics community in the country. Noli was a unique individual who will be remembered for being an outstanding teacher and researcher, mentor, and inspiration to many. I first knew about Noli when he was an undergraduate student. I was a young instructor. He's a few years younger than myself. He was a member of the math major circle, but I worked with him first around 1981 when his mother, our beloved Professor Fair Reyes, who I looked up to as a mentor and I consider one of the best professors ever in the department then and up to today, asked the two of us to help her prepare solutions to exercises for her college algebra textbook. So I'm proud to have associated with the whole Reyes family, and I hope that I can see my friends Edgar and Leah again when the pandemic ends or eases. Noli would later go to the Ohio State University, and I would hear about his attempts at baking cookies and cakes. His Filipino friends would tell me, especially when Noli would feel very bad if his experiments failed, baking experiments failed. I would also hear about his frequent vacations to France, where he would eventually learn the language. I was very happy when Noli rejoined the faculty. I felt that with his and Agnes' return in 1993, the Institute's trajectory took a big positive turn. For myself, I gained or regained a true friend. I miss him very much, but am thankful for his friendship, for touching our lives, and for all his contributions to the Institute. Noli always reminded everybody, and not just our younger colleagues, of how important it was or it is to continuously study to improve on our craft. Early on, he would do research, submit them for publication, and worried little if his paper would be accepted or not. To me, that was a lesson in confidence as well as humility. I always felt insecure about my knowledge and analysis, but Noli was the master, and to this day, I will never forget Noli's lectures, often delivered in Filipino, that were models of clarity. I think I learned more about measure and integration from a few lectures of Noli than from the classes I took. And if you were his student, you've heard it earlier, you would know early on that if you wanted to be on his good side, then you should come to class on time, listen attentively, put away your cell phone, answer straight to the point, do well in exams, and do problem sets on your own. Otherwise, you might experience your worst nightmare inside the classroom. Despite Noli's moods and outbursts, which actually became infrequent through the years, there's an almost universal fondness and high regard for Noli. I think it is because Noli was a real and authentic person who was quick to acknowledge his faults and apologize for his shortcomings. He had a gentle side and was partial to regular folks, enjoying fully when he would be mistaken for a trabajador, security guard, or when posing as a jeepney driver. Everyone respected and admired his passion for mathematics, a passion that was also evident in his love for piano, the environment, social justice, swimming, and lately, triathlon. I will let others talk about Noli's fun and crazy side with friends, but I know his antics and escapades were legendary. So Noli, maraming salamat and belated happy birthday to you. You may be gone, but your spirit and legacy will always be a comfort and guide for all of us. Maraming salamat and thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Sir
Also,
Joey. So thank you for your short message in behalf of Sir Noli. So nabanggit niyo po belated happy birthday to Sir Noli. So for the information of everyone, Dr. Noli Reyes' birthday is November 2. That is why we held this webinar in his memory on this date also. So now we will hear from Dr. Marian Roque. Ma'am Marian.
Okay na. Good
Yes.
morning, and thank you for this opportunity to say something about Noli. Sorry ko hindi siya super short like the messages before. So, Noli, or Kuya Noli, as we fondly called him, is perhaps one of the most unforgettable characters in the Institute and in my life. He's a man of contradictions. He is both funny and scary, gentle and mean, caring, loving one moment, angry the next, nurturing, encouraging, but could be discouraging and frustrating any moment. Timid, shy, bold, audacious, polite, proper, brash, disrespectful, calm, cool, hot-headed, volatile, mercurial, down to earth, level headed, stable, and the list goes on. But he was consistently generous, curious, driven to do his best, diligent. And there's actually one common denominator for the whole spectrum of his character, his passion. He gives his all in everything he does, everything he feels, and that passion is evident to anyone whose life he has touched, and that is a lot of people. He showed that passion when he played the piano, joined rallies, fought for what he believed in, taught gardening to students, joined triathlons. He swam, he ran, he biked, he lived, and he loved with passion. Perhaps aside from music, as Joey had mentioned, he was most passionate about mathematics in every aspect, research, teaching, or mentoring. He is one of the most productive researchers and mentors and an esteemed professor precisely because of that passion. He worked nonstop when he was writing a paper, and he wrote a lot of papers. And he just said that he told me when I was starting out as a mathematician to just keep on writing and submitting, that every published paper he had actually meant 2 or 3 rejections prior to acceptance. This inspired me to finally submit in an ISI index journal after years of submitting in local journals and proceedings. So I have always planned to sit in his class to learn how he teaches so efficiently and effectively, but never got around doing it. And I will never really have the chance to hear him deliver a class lecture. Lesson learned always sees the moment, a lesson I have learned from him. Kuya Noli is truly an unforgettable character. How can I forget this friend? Well, for one, I live now in the house where his family stayed in for years. How can I forget a friend who has been there for me every time I needed him? When I had throat surgery in 2004, I asked him to wait in my room and to apply makeup as soon as I was wheeled in back from the recovery room. And he did it with passion. And he told me, ang dali lang pala. It was his first time to apply makeup on anyone. And ang dali lang palang gawin ito. And we even joke, Kuya Noli, pag ako namatay, kung mag-makeup sa akin, I also had asked him to be the babysitter for my daughter, Tintin, every time I had a class and I had no yaya. I know he wasn't really that fond of kids, like he wouldn't really play with them, but I had no choice. Tintin later told me just a few years back that while she was in his office and she was reading a book loudly because she was just like 4 years old, Noli told her nicely, in the nicest way possible, Tintin, magbasa ka ng tahimik. And she got so scared, she learned how to speed read and really quietly. I stayed in him with him in his apartment regularly, and we spent evenings drinking wine, dancing, and singing. So many tender moments together. I have so many fond memories of Kuya Noli, so many funny stories to pass on to the next generation. One of my favorites, as Joey mentioned, the guard mistook him for a construction worker in the M-Ban and wanted to check his bag. He went into character and imagined himself as a construction worker, not just any kind of a construction worker, but a construction worker who stole a tool. So he clutched onto his bag and ran, and he ran away. The guard ran after him, but with his long legs, Kuya Noli was gone in seconds. We were just glad that nothing happened to him. Like the guard could have shot him. I have a lot of other stories, my adventures with him, Christy, Agnes, and Joanne, and Joey. Some stories we can never share. Fidel has an incriminating evidence actually against us. He was my best friend and at times my worst enemy. But what binds us is our love for math, for UP and our country, love for nature, for friends, for our families. His Tita Mitos is my Tita Mitos. His mother is our Tita Fe, our beloved Tita Fe. We had bad times, but those are epsilons, finitely many in our denumerable happy moments. Kuya Noli lives on in his mathematics, in his students like Louis, Gino, and Nestor Akala. He lives on in his friendships and his family. Thank you, Kuya Noli, for a well-lived life with so shared with so many people, and happy birthday. I know you're happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Marian. Now, Ma'am Marian will read a message from Dr. Christy Casanidis in her behalf.
Okay, I think there's an 8-hour difference, so Christy might be sleeping now. As I've mentioned before, we spent many years in Hardinang Rosas together, many nights eating dinner together. So tribute to Kuya Noli Reyes. Kuya Noli was first and foremost a friend to us. He was a person with whom you can be yourself all the time. He was a very transparent person and would speak his mind on matters he thought would be good to all, will serve good to all. Kuya Noli passed away gently and quietly. It would have been easier for me if I had a short conversation with him and, and had a laugh at ourselves like the way we used to do. Those little conversations about life and social awareness with some twists made them so funny thinking back now. Thanks to our maths friends, his famous lines, funny anecdotes, and sometimes made up stories were trending weeks after he was gone. I realized that those were one of the things we love about him. I remember him telling me in Hardinang Rosas that he was using his feet to wash his clothes. I know it's very unusual, but when I asked him why, he said that he was taking care of his hands to play piano well. Kuya Noli was one of the strong pillars of the mathematics community. He taught several generations of maths people who are now in many places. Some of them are leading in their fields and passing on his teachings to younger people. He is still alive in many of us. His mathematics will continue on and grow some more in time. I was asking my husband, what else can I say about Kuya Noli? And he said, we really do not know where to start from. It's overwhelming. I was feeling low last Monday, the 2nd of November, after a busy day. Then I realized that it's his birthday. Our hearts would remember, even if some things slip in our mind. I really miss those little conversations, which are concoctions of what's happening now, what is more important in life, and what's so funny about it. Let's all sing happy birthday in our hearts for Kuya Noli. We will miss him. If he were to whisper a message to us, he would be saying, I'm now part of the orchestra of angels in heaven. He still makes me smile. Nagmamahal, Christy Kazanidis.
Thank you, Ma'am Marian, for reading that letter. Thank you, Dr. Christie, for sharing your thoughts with us. Now we will hear a message from one of his academic sons. Let us welcome Dr. Edwin Balila.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I am happy and indeed blessed that Noli became my dissertation advisor. And I suppose I am his first advisee. And that was in the late of 1988. Uh, One of my fun experience with him as I was working with my dissertation. And one day, he wanted me to do some revision of my paper. And I told him that I am going home in Cavite. Doon ko na lang tatapusin itong pinapagawa mo sa akin. And so when I sat down in the table, I started to work on it. I realized it was really a very hard thing to do. And so as I was thinking about it, I was trying to think of any solutions. And as I was trying to think of those solutions, I feel like going to the CR. And then when I was inside the CR, and then I sat down in the bowl and suddenly realized that I just want to only urinate. So that's one of my fun experiences with Noli. And just lately, when I was browsing on the internet and found out that Noli has an Erdos number 3. And surprisingly enough, I found my name to have an Erdos number next to him, Erdos number 4. And I consider it to be my legacy with Noli. And it was so unfortunate that I was overwhelmed with some administrative activity that I have here at Adventist University of the Philippines. So I was not able to further my research experience with Noli. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Balila, for sharing that very fond memory of Sir Noli. Now we are going to hear from Dr. Ariel Babiera, another son of Dr. Noli Reyes.
Hi, good morning. Actually, I am listening to a recorder of a presentation. Currently, we have a student faculty research conference here in Los Baños, and I was supposed to present a paper from one of our results with Sir Noli, of course. And currently, the recording is playing. So in a while, maybe I will be asked for the Q&A. But then, let me just share something, my experience with Sir Noli. As mentioned, I was Ph.D. advisee of Sir Noli. And I just confirmed earlier from Louis' presentation that I am his youngest academic son. I never got to know Sir Noli as a colleague after being an advisor. Probably mathematics is the only hobby we share in common. I am a bad swimmer. I only learned how to ride a bike during this quarantine period. He is into running. I am more of a casual walker. I do not know how to play any music instrument. I do read books in the morning, but mostly fantasy books. Okay. I finished my PhD in 2018. The last time I met him was in January 2019 for a brief research discussion when I also gave him a honey spread from Bohol. some sort of a present. I took a vacation in Bohol, and then I decided to give him a present going back. I only learned then that he really likes sweets, breads, and spreads. So I really do not know other interests of Sir Noli beyond mathematics then. There were supposed to be two instances when we should have met but was unable to. I looked forward to shaking his hands during the College of Science testimonial for graduates last June 2019, but he was not able to attend that. Also, I also plan to converse less formally with him during the workshop on approximation theory and optimization back in August 2019, but he was not able to attend that. So really, I only got to know Sir Noli as my advisor. It was not really my plan to pursue approximation theory for my dissertation. Back in 2013, I approached him for the third area for the PhD comprehensive exam and possibly for my dissertation. He was my professor in algebraic topology, and I intended to pursue a problem in that area. I asked him, "Sir, pwede ko po bang kunin ang algebraic topology para sa third area?" His exact reply to me ay wag yun. Those three words, ay wag yun. And that was how I got to pursue approximation theory for my dissertation. Because of that ay wag yun from algebraic topology, I shifted to approximation theory. Sir Noli was also my professor in approximation theory the same semester I took algebraic topology. That is also the same semester that I only had 9 units, and all of those 9 units are under Sir Noli. I would jokingly say to myself then or to others that I am taking PhD in Noli that semester. All of my 9 units. And I think Sir Noli also has 9 units of those 3 subjects as his teaching load that semester. So it's like we are classmates. That's with him, of course, being my professor then. By the time I finished my PhD, 5 out of 10 courses I took were all under Sir Noli. So somehow really I'm a PhD in Noli, probably. In my 4 years of doing my dissertation, I am fortunate to have experienced Sir Noli's patience. As I see it, Sir Noli is very patient, but have very short attention span, and he easily gets bored. When I was still doing my dissertation, I would have to take 3 to 4 hour commute from Los Baños to Diliman and another 3 to 4 hours going back. Added to that are the changing traffic along EDSA. When we meet for consultation, it would last for about only 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So after my 3 hours of travel from Los Baños to Diliman, we are going to consult for 10 minutes, for, in some cases, maximum of 15 minutes, but it will not go over 15 minutes. Those are very productive minutes. After hours of commute and before the longer hours going back, we really get to converse deeply, even for a short span of time. And that's when I learned that really Sir Noli has very short attention span. He is not known for his patience, but my experience with him going to different areas of study shows otherwise. To do my PhD dissertation, I have to study uncertainty principles, approximate solutions, generalized inverses, regularization, frame theory, signal analysis, a bit of free analysis, monotone operators, and many more. So I have to study a lot in different areas, but then in the end, that is probably the best part, where you are at the end and then all of these topics, these varying topics, result to something, I don't know, something amazing. So, and then in fact, when I was preparing the presentation for the defense, he reminded me that it should only last for 45 minutes with a comment of, mahaba na nga yun. Usually, I expect that PhD dissertation will last for at least 1 hour. But then his comment is 45 minutes is too long. His ultimate reminder, ayaw ko makakita ng complete sentences sa slides. That ultimate reminder is something that I always and will always keep in mind when preparing for any presentation since then. No sentences, no complete sentences. My biggest regret, probably, is that I was not able to take any picture with him. Our names will always be together in my dissertation and in our only published paper, but we will never have a picture together. I will never get to share a picture with you, a picture of me with him. That's why I wasn't able to prepare anything. I know the others thank you for those pictures, but then I will not be able to do that. I would like to end this with my first encounter with Sir Noli. It was not during my PhD. I first encountered Sir Noli back in May 2014 along the Seaside Boulevard of Dumaguete City. That was during the 2014 conference of the Mathematical Society of the Philippines. We were there for scholarly things, but the first time I met him is far from scholarly. Let me just say that there were some empty bottles and some dancing involved, dancing on the streets. Okay, so it was really casual. Then I would have never thought of having him as my PhD advisor. I was doing graph theory back then. I am really fortunate to have him as my PhD advisor, and he will always be my advisor. My first encounter with him was very brief and casual. My last encounter with him is to close or to end my PhD days. His last message to me back in January was this. I have to go back to my cell phone, okay? This is his last message to me. Hi, Ariel. Sige, Ariel. All the best for 2020. This was back in January 5. I think I asked him about something, and then he replied to me, Hi, Ariel. Sige, Ariel. All the best for 2020. I did not know then that he had health concerns. I thought he was having his sabbatic touring and biking the Philippines. And now, the striking thing to me is his words from his text, Sige, Ariel. I have to regain my composure in doing mathematics research and to continue out works that are still left to be pursued. Ang dami pa na kaming gagawin. So nasabi ko na lang talaga, sabi niya, Sige, Ariel. My reply to him probably now is, Sige, Sir Noli. And I think I'll end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Babiera. So, sige na, Sir Ariel. Tuloy lang natin ang research na.
Yeah, dapat ituloy ang mga unfinished problems.
Okay. So now we will be viewing a recorded message from Mr. John Pelias.
Hello, I'm John. I used to be an undergrad and a grad student and an instructor in UP Diliman, Institute of Mathematics, and I'm also, well, many of you might know that I consider myself a friend. Well, maybe the better way of saying it is I consider Professor Noli Reyes as my colleague, my mentor, and a professor and a friend. It's not a secret that he is one of my academic mentors, and I guess it also goes with the same goes with most of you guys, especially the younger ones. Definitely tulad ko, naging professor niyo rin siya sa ilang mga analysis courses at topology. Topology, ito lang yung naihanda kong libro dahil itinuturo ko siya ngayon. Yeah, so as I guess I'm not the only one who is saying some message about Sir Noli, and definitely we have the same message. Our rigor in proving that a limit exists, some function is continuous, some sequence of functions uniformly converges to a function, definitely comes from him, right? All those magic deltas produced from a certain epsilon, that's Noli land, that's Noli's expertise, and that's one of the things I would be forever grateful to him, my intuition and analysis and topology. And now I'm actually doing topology as a research field. There are so many aspects about Sir that I can say. I could go on and on, but I understand the limitations of time. So let me just say that I really love Sir Noli as a professor, as a friend. I mean, just as an academic. I mean, when I found out that Professor Sir Noli, passed on, tinexta ko ni Ma'am Isa, nawala na si Sir, and I cannot replicate my emotion, but I mean, I do feel sad, but I guess naubos ko na yung mga luha ko. Pero nung panahong yun, even me right now trying to recount that moment, it was an unexplainable, and I guess that's how you know that someone actually mattered in your life. It was an unexplainable void. Like, I actually remembered telling him when I was going to America that bumalik. I mean, that he studied in Ohio State University, right, for his PhD, and then why don't you go back and then let's meet in America? But he doesn't want to, whatever. But the point is, I was honestly looking forward to when I go, that he goes here, or when I come back to the Philippines, makavideoke ko siya ulit. But I can't say enough how much the university has lost a mathematician in the person of Professor Noli Reyes. But more importantly, I cannot stress enough how huge of an influence of a friend in life I and many of us have lost in his passing. So that's it. Well, to the organizers, again, thank you for doing this for Sir. He deserves this. He definitely deserves this. So that's it. Again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Mr. John Pelias. A longer version of his message will be sent to the family of Sir Noli. Now we will hear a message from a friend, Mr. Alfred Pido Gargolio, to be read by Dr. Jim Minglana. Okay, so we'll go back to that. Sorry, I skipped the order of messages. Before we hear the message from Mr. Pido, may we first let us watch the recorded message of Dr. Rowena Alma Betty.
Just like the rest of us, first learning the untimely demise of Sir Noli really came as a shock. A week or two before UP canceled classes, nagkausap pa kami. Sinabi ko sa kanya na hindi na matutuloy yung isang overseas trip ko because of the COVID. And hindi ko akalain na yun na pala yung huling time na magkakausap kami. I first met Sir Noli when I took functional analysis. And after that course, I consider him as one of the best professors I ever had. After I obtained my Ph.D. Naging madalas na makasama ko na rin si Sir Noli, even outside the math building. So it started first as some dinner invitations, and then naging madalas na yun, some small with some small celebrations, several occasions. So si Sir Noli, napaka-cool nun nakasama. He will talk about math, the institute, students, politics, with me, usually music, and also about cats, kasi pareho kaming mahilig sa pusa. Kapag lumalabas kami and he will have some menu recommendations, siguradong masarap yun. I will forever associate yung Amici restaurant with him. The Institute have not only lost an outstanding mathematician, but also a great colleague and a mentor. Sobra-sobra kitang mamini, Sir Noli.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Betty, for sharing your memories of Sir Noli. And now we are going to hear a message by Mr. Alfred Pido Gargolio to be read by Dr. Jim Minglana.
Hello, sorry. Good morning, everyone. Good evening to also to those who are across the globe. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Marit, can you hear me? Thank you very much. Pido is one of Noli's closest friends in the triathlon group. They prepared a video which will be shown after this message, and Pido has a difficulty with the signal, so I'll just read. He asked me to read his message, and he texted, "Actually, di ko alam kung ano sasabihin para sa seminar, Sir Jim, because I extended to them the invitation that this is a seminar and testimonial." Then he continues, "Kasi it's on mathematics. Binibiro ko siya dati, sabi ko, hindi ka ba naboboringan dyan sa math, Sir Noli?" Tumawa lang siya at sinagot ako, "Alam mo, Pido, yung math, hindi lang yan sa pagbibilang ng numero. Mahalaga ang math sa buhay natin dahil lahat ng bagay ay meron mathematical equation. Nasa atin na lang yun, paano gawa ng mathematical solution yan para ma-solve." Nakakalito siguro dahil isang prof yung nagsabi sa akin noon. Pero tama si Sir, lahat ng bagay nagagawa ng solution. Si Sir Noli, dinadaan siguro yun by math equation. Di ko nga alam kung paano niya nagkakasya lahat ng mga formula na yan sa kanyang brain, pero believe talaga ako kay Sir Noli. Nung binalita niya sa akin na may 1-year leave siya, natuwa talaga siya dahil sabi niya, pagkakataon na siya mag-ensayo. Yung Gimaras ang pinaka-paborito niyang puntahan kasi maluwag ang daan at masarap yung pagkain. Dami niya gustong puntahan, lalo na yung mga kaibigan niya sa ibang lugar. Yung last visit niya, sinadya talaga niya na mapuntahan yon. Bacolod para makasama yung Trinity family team niya. Di ko alam na magiging last ride na pala namin yun. Nakakalungkot pero nagpapasalamat ako at dumaan siya sa buhay namin. Marami siyang napapasayang tao dahil sabi niya, wala na tayo dapat aksayahin na oras dahil ang bawat numero na dumadaan sa relo natin ay sobrang mahalaga, kaya dapat natin pahalagahan yung oras na magkakasama ang mga taong mahal natin sa buhay. End of the message.
They're bound to guide my way.
Thank you, Mr. Pido Gargolio, for preparing that message and also for preparing that video. It is moving to see Sir Noli climbing that steep slope on that bicycle. It's a big challenge to us to also go beyond our comfort zones. Now we will hear this message from Dr. Jim Minglana himself. Okay, Dr. Jim Minglana, uh, thank you for reading that message of Mr. Alfred Pido. So now we'd like to hear your message for Sir Noli.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Pido, and the Triathlon family of Noli for preparing the video. And I also experienced the love of your of Noli's triathlon family when I was also part of his training. So I joined Noli in one of his trainings in Guimaras in one of my breaks, and then Pido was the one who was making us cycle throughout Guimaras. But then I had difficulty walking and biking also because I have lost my stamina. So I will never forget the memory that Noli was speeding ahead of us while Pido was pushing me in my back while we were both on bicycles. So that's one of my most unforgettable memory with Noli. But more than that, I feel very blessed to have met Noli. Our first meeting was when I returned from my studies in chemistry abroad. So I returned in 2002. That's where I met Noli when I was looking for a place to stay within the campus. And I would just like to share with you our experience. I brought with me from my place in Japan a parrot, a small parrot, which we called Shin-chan. He was my companion for several years in Japan. So he stayed in Hardinang Rosas for several months until one day a stray cat sneaked into the apartment, and it was goodbye for Shin-chan. So it was a very unfortunate incident, but it remained in my memory because since then the stray cats litters, the kittens would be our future alaga. Until now, we have one remaining cat with us. Since meeting Noli in 2002, I have the privilege of having been his very good friend, and I stayed on in chemistry until 2009. And when during this period I made lots of friendship with his friends in math. Almost all of them became my friends. I will not mention anymore: Agnes, Marian, Christy, Fidel, Joey, so all of you. And it was during this period that I saw how a very good person he is during my chem days here in UP. After that, I moved to DFA, and until then, I'm still with DFA. And the distance may have limited my experience with staying with Noli, but then he remained to be my strength, especially when it's very difficult and stressful in working in DFA through the years. Now that I have returned from my first posting, we continued to travel, and also I am very happy to say that Noli is also very close to our family. Um, there were several travels we made One of them is in Siargao last year, together with my sister and our cousins with Noli, and he enjoyed it very much because he will go anywhere as long as there is water to swim and there is delicious food to taste, to try. And also during the last 2 years, when I returned from my from my assignment, we are also very close with Marian Joy, Louis, and Agnes, and Robin, and also with Tal, who is Noli's daughter of Robin and Marian Joy. Tal is also Noli's godchild, and so is Tintin, Marian's Noli's other godchild. And we were looking forward to making more memories with all our friends and families together. And our last travel was in Bangkok, which was before the lockdown happened. And it was already during this time that I think he was feeling something, but he did not let us be bothered by his condition. And so the the next few weeks saw us taking care of Noli. And it was during this time that were very grateful that we were together, and Louis was also there to take care of him and to provide all the comfort that he needed. After that, when Noli passed on, I would like to share with you a dream. One time I was sleeping, and then in my dream, Noli sat by my side and said, "Dito sa langit, di ko na kailangan tugtugin ang mga mahihirap na piyesa." And that was really very memorable for me because I know that he is in heaven and he is very happy watching over us. And and I know the difficult pieces were a source of stress for him because he really wanted to play them and he strived to play the difficult pieces. And lastly, I would like to say that he he had his first birthday in heaven last November 2, and tomorrow is his seventh monthsary. And time flies very fast. It's like yesterday that he went to heaven. And I listened carefully to Louis' speech, especially in the last part, and I noticed that when he was showing the last slide, Louis was saying Noli likes this food, Noli loves to. And I thought we in the FA are very conscious about our grammar, and normally we would use the past tense for someone whom we are describing already in the past tense. So it seems like Louis is using the present tense because he knows that Noli is still alive, and I also know that Noli is alive in all our hearts. And I thank you for this, Louis, for this beautiful presentation, and also to everyone who gave their testimonial to Noli. And from our family, we thank Noli, and we thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. G. Minglana. Now we will watch a recorded message by Mr. Ben Endriga.
Good morning. Ako si Ben Endriga, friend ako ni Noli. Actually, nung high school, mag-neighbors kami sa Bautista Street sa Area 2. But it wasn't in our adult years na nakilala ko na siya nung early 2000s. And it was an instant connection because we both played the piano. We were both deeply interested in classical music. We both had progressive views. We were both swimmers. At saka pareho kami mahilig kumain ng masarap. So we took piano lessons together under Raul Sunico. And moments were very memorable. Naalala ko, kasi ina-admire ko yung scholarly output ni Noli. Tinanong ko siya, paano ka nakakaisip ng mga gagawin? Sabi niya, one of those moments daw na nakakaisip siya ng topic or nagpo-progress yung publication niya pag nagpa-piano lesson kami. Kasi nag-alternate kami, we took lessons 1.5 hours each. So pag nagle-lesson akong 1.5 hours, naghihintay lang siya doon, listening to us. So yung mga moments daw na yon, nakakaisip siya, tapos nagsiscribble din siya ng mga thoughts niya about what he would be publishing. Tapos isa pang memorable experience ko yung piano recital na namin that we held in Abelardo Hall. Tawang-tawa ako pag naisip ko yun kasi si Noli nervyoso eh. Well, ako rin, pero mas nervyoso siya. Tapos nung araw ng recital namin, may uminom siya ng whiskey. Tapos may baon pa siya nung nandun na kami. So medyo namumula siya dahil ninenervyos siya. So medyo hirap siya sa coordination. Medyo nagkamali siya doon sa mga pieces niya. Tapos kahit sa backstage, ninenervyos siya, umiinom pa rin siya uli. So minsan nung magbabaw na siya, medyo ma-off balance siya. Tawan-tuwa ako pag naisip ko yung moments na yon. Tapos isa sa mga memorable moments din yung every time after ng piano lesson namin, lagi kami nag-iisip kung saan kami kakain. And also when we swam together, nagsiswimming din kami together before sa University of Life. Pag wala akong contract sa ADB, sumasama ako sa kanya mag-swim. Tapos usually after ng swimming, kumakain kami ng pizza sa Amici sa may Green Hills. Ayun. There are many things I admire about Noli, yung kanyang integrity, yung kanyang tenacity, when he practices piano, mabilis siyang natuto ng pace, tsaka yung focus niya maganda. Ano pa ba? Yung kanyang warmth, yung compassion niya, yung progressive views niya. Very admirable talaga. Saka siyempre yung pagka-triathlete, bilib na bilib din ako doon. So ayun, I actually prepared a piano recording of that I'd like to share with you. This piece reminds me of Noli. It was one of the pieces I played during a recital at Abelardo in 2003. It's entitled Impromptu Number 2 by Franz Schubert. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, thank you for that message and musical piece given by Mr. Ben and Driga. Truly, it is fitting to start this webinar with a tribute to Dr. Reyes as a mathematician, and towards the end, to give tribute to him as a musician. Now we will go to the response from a member of the family of Dr. Noli Reyes. Let us hear this message from Dr. Edgar Reyes.
Oh, hello, Marek.
Hello,
Kamusta?
sir.
Yeah. Gusto ko sana mag-share ng screen. Hindi, teka. Let me try this. Nope. Let's see. Teka. Sorry. Sandali. Oh, what happened? Oh. Okay, I see. All right. I see. I'm not sure how to get back. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to read what I wrote down for my tribute to Noli. As you know, Noli is our youngest sibling. At an early age, probably when he was only 7 or 8 years old, he started wearing eyeglasses. And in elementary school, he liked to draw on paper with pens and pencils. So in hindsight, I think he was going to become a professor, or he was going to have an academic life. Our family grew up in UP campus in the same house where Marian is now. In elementary school in UP campus, Noli started playing the piano. And for those of you who know him, he played classical piano pieces, as Ben said, and as Agnes said, and Joey and Fidel. They knew Noli liked to play piano. Noli graduated from UP in 1984. And then he went to Ohio State University and got his Ph.D. degree in 1992. I think I was lucky enough that I was able to visit Noli in Columbus. And he had good friends in there, a closely knit group of Filipino students, just like his family in the UP Institute of Math, with Agnes, Joey, Fidel, Louis, Marian. So he was not only a brother to me, but he was a brother to everyone, to where he worked. So in 1993, Noli returned and joined the UP Mathematics department. Then it was a department. Noli felt at home. He was where he wanted to be. He had many friends, including again Jim, Agnes, Kayan, Marian, and Fidel, and Joey, and Louis, his other students, and other members of the University of the Philippines, UP. And Noli had many friends, athletes, bicyclists with Ironman, even a taxi driver. I read in, or even I think a taxi driver missed Noli. He thought Noli was extra kind to him. I think yes. So in his own ways, in Noli's own certain ways, Noli was a minimalist. He didn't have to have those extra things. He didn't really need extra unnecessary material, or he was so basic. He lived simply, I think. He had many friends. So when we visited Manila, when my family and I would visit Manila, maybe for 2 weeks or so, we probably would see Noli only for 2 to 3 times, but it was good enough, He came to see us. My children like to see Noli. My son played the piano too. My daughter was into swimming. So my daughter was swimming for a long time, from high school. No, from maybe when she was since 12 years old, she was swimming until she became 18. So they talk about swimming. And then Noli was, I gather from the pictures from Noli's friends that he was an activist. He cared for the rights of people. He cared for elderly parents, our parents too, when they were in they were getting old in their 80s and 90s. And I could not stop to remember that he always brought lunch for my mother like twice a week. And I'm really thankful to all of you that you have, I was hearing more stories and learning more about my brother, because we're like the distance separates us. But I know he was at home with you, with all of you, and you were his family. Yes. So in behalf of my sister and Tita Mitz, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Noli's many friends, colleagues, and students for bringing up the memories of Noli. And we thank the organizers very much, Louis and Dr. Kayan, and everyone involved. We thank the organizers very much for this webinar and this tribute to Noli. And we are very thankful. It was nice to see all of you again, old friends and old colleagues at UP. Thank you very much, Dr. Merrick.
Thank you, Dr. Edgar Reyes, for sharing with us some insights on Sir Noli as a son and as a brother, and also as a tito.
Oh, yes.
So we appreciate very much your giving us this message, and we hope that despite the passing on of Sir Noli, his memory will stay alive within us. So to everyone, from the talks and the short messages given in this webinar, we glean that Sir Noli has indeed made significant contributions to mathematics, and he has impacted the lives of many. He has served well his country by his excellence and passion in research and teaching, and in forwarding the cause of the underprivileged. But most importantly, through this webinar, we see that Sir Noli is a very good friend, and we will always remember him as such. So we would want to extend this webinar, but all good things have to end, and we would just like to announce that to further commemorate the legacy of Dr. Reyes, we are organizing a mathematical conference dedicated to him, hopefully by March of next year. Also, there is a proposal to raise funds for a Professor Noli Reyes faculty grant. So we hope that if any of these pushes through, that we can rely on your involvement and support to everyone who participated in this webinar. So to our speakers, thank you very much for your messages. To the friends, colleagues, relatives of Sir Noli, we thank you very much for for the memories you shared. And to everyone who participated in this conference, thank you for your attendance. A quick announcement. The next IMath webinar is on November 23, and this will be given by the Math, Finance, and Actuarial Science Academic Group. So with that, we will end this webinar in memory of Dr. Noli Reyes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Walang problema if you want to retain. Thank you. Ingat kayo lahat.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karin.
Bye-bye.
We miss all of you there.
Good to hear from you also, sir.
One day, pag wala nang...
Ang dulo kasi nito, ganito. Right now,
Hi, Edwin. Bye-bye, Edwin.
Ay, Marian, one day, pag wala ng COVID, dadalaw ako dyan. Tagal ko na din nakadalaw.
Hi, Mamitos.
Sir Joey.
Tita Mitos. Nandiyan Tita Mits?
Nandiyan si Tita Mits. Tita Mits.
Hindi ko siya makita.
Sino kami?
Ayun.
Si Mamitos? Gusto ko makita si Mamitos.
We can convert some of the lecture rooms that are not going to be used to labs, etc. And therefore, we can theoretically
Nadidinig ko si Gani.
Sorry.
Nagle-lecture.
Nag-mute na ako. Naririnig ko siya kanina. Nasaan?
Sorry, minute ko tuloy.
Akala ko ako yun.
Din, nakamute ka, Din.
Nakamute ka, Joey. Joey, nakamute ka.
Okay. Sabi ko, okay lang marinig mga boses kahit na si Paco kung siya ang kakanta. Oh. So, good to see you, Edwin, Edgar, kung nandiyan pa kayo.
Good to see you,
everyone.
Saan nagpatugtog tayo ng favorite song ni Noli, yung Sun Come On, naroroon.
Mura, may kasamang mura.
Wala, pero iba yung pitch niya.
Siya yung kakanta. May falsetto.
Next time sa kanyang retirement.
Ay, ang daming picture na pwedeng pakita pero saka na lang.
Hindi nga pwede. Yung iba talaga hanggang mamatay ako kasama ko na. Ni Fidel pala yung isa.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Louie. Hugs, hugs, hugs.
Thank you, Louie. Saka si Gino.
Naalala ko tuloy si Shin-chan.
Thank you sa O&A, Marit.
Hello, Juma. Hi, Juma. How are you?
Ito na yung unit ni Noli ngayon.
Malinis na?
More or less. Kasi this week namin ibabakit.
Ay, pa-picture muna tayo.
Ito na yung pusa, si Tantan. Tantan.
Walang yung Noli, sa anak ko pinangalan yung pusa nyo?
Si Tantan. Ito si Tantan. Ito si Celine.
Tintin
Tantan
yan.
and Celine.
kasi yung inline ko.
Celine. Say hi, Celine.
Hi po. So, si Celine? Ano si Celine?
Ito, Celine.
Hi, Celine. Ang laki na niya.
Oo.
Hanggang kailan ka dyan? Hanggang kailan ka